Hello indeed, from Thursday land. Right, let's go to the United States of America and I think stay there for the entire presentation. This is from the CBO. They say that the federal budget deficit totaled $721 billion for the first 7 months of 2012. So we can presume if it's 700 after 7 months, it'll probably be 1200 after 12 months. $1.2 trillion deficit. Down at the bottom it says April collections were up by 10%. Receipts this April were $319 billion, 30 billion or 10% higher than the collections last April. So they're getting the money in quite nicely. Let's leave that there. With that at the back of our mind that the government is running trillion-dollar deficits. This is from the ECRI, and the slaphead Altachuan, or whatever quite his name is still saying that there will be a recession. He's been pushing this one for rather too long now. But this is obviously part of his reasoning. This is an ECRI chart, and it's US real personal income year-on-year growth. Now, if you go back to the start of this chart, 1952, and follow the recession grey bars, the push down blue drops below that black horizontal line in US real personal income does tend to correspond with a recession, very clearly to start with, but you can see since the year 2000 things have not been quite so clear. There was a push down below in 2003, and that wasn't officially a recession. The Great Recession obviously was a push down, and this is what he's obviously on about now, that it's pushed down below that line again. So that's why ECRI people are clinging on to there will be a recession in 2012 for the United States call. And from other things we're going to see, certainly you can wave goodbye to blah plus, and we'll review again when it hits blah. This is obviously a Fed chart going back to 1952. Is that actually the same time span as the ECRI chart? And this is total credit market debt owned by domestic non-financial sectors, basically household. And this is just numerical, as in dollars, so you can't get too much from it except the shape. It starts off just about zero and swoops up. At 1980 it really starts taking off from 0 billion. At 1980 it was at 2 trillion, and basically in just before the crisis, the Great Recession hit, it was at 14 trillion, and it's down and is still down. That is household total credit market debt owed. But they've got the repayment amounts down on that as best they can, so people can keep repaying. This is a chart that's split into 3 by me because it was so tall, and at the bottom of it are the dates, which give us, this goes back to 2006 I think, so it's only the last 6 or 7 years, and it's total consumer credit, this top one, the blue line, and it maxed in 2008, went down and is struggling back up again, but that's total consumer credit. And the reason it's gone back up again from, as we can see in this consumer credit student loans red line, 2009 student loans from the start of this chart in late 2005, 2006 runs flat at about $100 billion, all up into the Great Recession. And then it's not just the young people, many people decided to go to school, got a loan which is effectively from the government, and those loans have gone from 100 billion, 123 billion in 2009, 150, 200, 300, 400, and now is at 460 billion. In a way, it's quite a wise thing to do to get yourself educated when there aren't jobs out there. So you just pop out on the other side when the jobs market has turned, and there you are with your extra qualifications to snap up a good job. It's just not quite working out that way. And I had me a think, will the US government one day go, well, if we're going to start forgiving debt, maybe this should be the first type of debt that we should start forgiving. But then the question would arise, if you forgive the past debts, would you then make the new people going to college take out new debts for them to pay? It's a very tricky situation, this debt forgiveness thing. But that's the reasoning for, we'll move on to 4C now, that's the reason that consumer credit is pointy upwards. It's the student debt. Take it out as in this green line and you can see what's happened from 2008. It's come down and it's stayed down, and that's that nasty little pointy down at the end where it was threatening to go up and more borrowing, more spending. But it hasn't, it's pointed down, and that linked with the ECRI, no more money coming in, means basically you can definitely wave goodbye to blah plus. But don't forget the student loans are actually being paid into the economy. They're loans from the government to people who actually spend them into the economy. And I suspect quite a lot of people are taking on those loans not just to get educated, but just to stay alive. Right, Diana Olick, CNBC. A select group of struggling mortgage borrowers are about to get an offer that sounds too good to be true. Executives at Bank of America say they will begin mailing 200,000 letters offering certain customers mortgage principal reduction. If people get these things and toss them, they won't be eligible, says Ron Sternberger, the Bank of America executive charged with providing solutions to borrowers in need of mortgage assistance. So this is Bank of America being just generous and public-spirited. Not. But the offer is real. The eligible borrowers could get as much as $150,000 knocked off the balance of their mortgages. It's all part of the $25 billion settlement reached this year between federal and state agencies and the nation's 5 largest mortgage services over fraudulent foreclosure document processing, the robo-signing thing. This is basically the payoff. Let's just say the government or the powers that be said to the banks, okay, we won't prosecute you on the naughtiness that you did, fraudulent, we won't prosecute you for the fraud as long as you give loads of mortgage people some money off. It really is one of the more pathetic things I've ever heard. But then we move on to this. House kills measure to fully fund mortgage fraud task force, with the financial sector sure to summon massive amounts of money and resources to battle any criminal or civil prosecutions over its role in the 2008 crisis. A key is how much resources authorities will have at their disposal to battle back. You know, they haven't been able to sign away all their fraud. They are going to be prosecuted for some things, maybe. When New York Attorney General Schneiderman, who seemed to be the good guy in all this, before the Congressional Progressives Caucus in late April, he asked the members to help him obtain funding for the Residential Mortgage-Backed Securities Working Group with co-chairs. If you want to help me badger everybody, that's good, he said. I'm a good badger by myself, but I know there are some experts in this room. Basically, Schneiderman, who's got his brain and fingers into this, wanted to go further in and wanted more backing, financial and otherwise, from them upstairs. Yesterday, Representative Maxine Waters, a member of the caucus, made the first attempt to get the RMBS group funding, and it didn't work. She offered an amendment to a large appropriations bill created by Republicans that would fund, in part, the Department of Justice. The bill provided only a fraction of the $55 million the DOJ asked for in its budget request for investigating and prosecuting financial and mortgage fraud. Waters proposed reappropriating some money in the bill from the NASA program to fully fund the $55 million request. Now, you might think that the government shouldn't be giving out another $55 million to another government agency to go on and do almost nothing, but the intention was there, and if Schneiderman had his brain behind it, that $55 million would go into prosecuting fraud. But it was not to be, because the American government seemingly can't afford that sort of money. We'll finish here. It's an interesting chart. The red line is mortgage payments, how much you would have to pay out a month in mortgage payments to be owning a house, and the blue line is rental prices. Rental prices are going up and up now because so many people have been kicked out of their homes, mortgages, and have obviously to live somewhere, so want to rent. So sale and demand, the lots of renting wanted out there, the prices are going up, and the mortgage payment prices are going down, so it is now cheaper to buy a house, in average, again. But this is where economists will get it wrong again. They would say, well, those numbers will switch round again, but they don't understand human psychology, that when a human has been burned, it takes a long time to get it out of the system, and people will not be rushing back into taking mortgages out, and rental prices probably will continue to rise. Odd, but there it is. Bye.